says that is attacking the integrity of the president who appoints, and so they must apologize. The World Bank says, we're sorry, we stand by what we said. We're made to look at these issues. Alex Segbefia is a former Deputy Chief of Staff, but also a leading member of the NDC. He will join us, look at the issues. And we're also expecting to join us shortly, Nana Frido Ajimano Foriata, a member of the MPP communications team. He will join us for this discussion. But let me introduce Mr. Alex Segbefia, who is with us in the studio. Thank you, sir, for your time. We wait for Nana Frido Ajimano to join us. So, but let's start the discussion. We started it actually before we even roll the camera. So let's say we'll continue. But let's start from the basics. Something happened this week. 2 individuals were jailed. One 3 days, the second 10 days. Has it sparked any, if you like, a revolution the way we see contempt and free speech? Or you think it's much ado about nothing, those who are making that an issue right now?
Well, I think that nothing has changed, actually, except that people are now being asked or are now being made aware that you have to be careful what you say in different circumstances. Now, if you abide by common courtesies, half your problem actually is solved, if not even more than half. Because you see, technically, if you are going to attack a decision of a person, or you want to disagree and put on a viewpoint, the major 99% of the time, or 95%, it doesn't create a problem. The problem with a lot of commentators is that they attack the person. And that is not what communication, especially public communication, should be about. Except you want to do it. If you're going to attack an individual for whatever reason, then do so. But know that you have attacked the person, and the person is subject to recourse. And especially if it's judges who are dealing with a case. But if you are dealing with just decisions, issues that have arisen, and you have an opinion, and you even have a contrary viewpoint, and you're going to express it in decent language, even accepting that you could be wrong, but this is your viewpoint of a particular scenario.
The question is, who defines what decent language is when you're dealing with the court?
Well, I mean, it's for me, it's pretty obvious. That the language, look, I make no bones about it. I've said it. Absolute filth. My language is filth is on our airwaves, both on radio and sometimes on TV. And we've all sat down and absorbed it. We've become like, as I said the other day, people who are in a war-torn area have seen people's arms hacked off and people killed. So that when we get into a town and somebody is holding a stick and is whipping a child, we think, oh, this is not too bad after all. When in reality, whipping the child is actually wrong. But we've come so far down the line, seeing so much violence, that we don't see that anymore as anything wrong. And that's the comparison I make with the kind of language we use on our airwaves. And now people say they are confused. Oh, I don't know how to... What am I supposed to say?
But isn't that a justification there? Because this case that is going on right now is unprecedented. We've not seen it before.
They've opened
clearly, people will be left in the certain lacuna. What do I do? What do I say? How do I say? This is the law. Yet, I'm guaranteed free speech in the Constitution.
Well, you are guaranteed free speech. But, like I said, the first thing is common courtesy. The next thing is not... Look, if you disagree with a decision of the judges, you can disagree with them on the issue, on a point on which an adjudication has been made. But you don't have to disagree with them to the extent where you are attacking the integrity of the judges that are sitting. That is a different matter. And even if the case is ongoing, if you find out a difficulty, just simply say, look, this matter, I'll discuss it subsequently. But at the moment, the case is ongoing, so I don't really want to comment. Because sometimes you can see there's a thin line. If you feel the possibility you're going to cross it is there, don't comment on it. But you can say, if there's something, if for example, you wanted to talk about Asedu Nketiah's evidence now, and make comments on it. He's done his evidence, it's been telecast, you can comment. But you can't say that because of Asiedu Nketia, the judges should rule this way or rule that way. Now you are entering into their domain. You can have views. And for me, personally, I don't have any difficulty. And I have always said that it's common courtesy, how you address people normally, how you deal with people. But if you have a vociferous attitude and you find your way of communicating is to bring the person down or speak in a derogatory manner about somebody, and when you actually are supposed to be discussing an issue, then by all means you have difficulty. You have to, and that is for them. But I don't think much has changed. The warnings were there from day one. They gave warning after warning after warning, a slap on the wrist for one person I mentioned before we got to where we've gotten to.
And maybe some have argued, including the likes of Kukubako and others,
Yeah.
that yes, we had the warnings, but people were still not quite clear.
About what?
In terms of defining in very clear terms what you can say about this and what you can allow to say about this. Because I was telling you earlier, normally they'll tell you you can't comment about the substance of the case in court.
Yes.
Right? But you're hearing all the lawyers after court commenting about the substance,
Yes,
saying
because
we will win.
But they're not making decisions. They are commenting on the process. Because a lot of people sometimes don't even understand what has happened and get the wrong picture. So, for example, somebody will come and say, in the last hearing, we saw Afarijan accepting that there were pink sheets that were not being signed. And you say, yes, but have you forgotten that Afarijan said the last time that, look, even though there were 2,000 pink sheets which the petitioners brought, of those pink sheets, the EC said that there were 950 that they identified as not being signed. Others were signed, but they were signed after they were sent to the collation center. Now you are explaining what Afarijan said in the past so that people can understand what is happening now. And therefore, by virtue of that, what was being given to Afarijan, you should also know that Afarijan had already said also that all those ones, the polling agents had also signed and had given an explanation when he was being examined as to the fact that Afarijan felt that he cannot see why we should annul votes if all polling agents have signed and only the presiding officer. Now, this evidence that Afarijan has given, you can comment on and make reference to it in terms of buttressing one's case or not. But don't make a decision for the judge. And then don't start talking about evidence that he has not yet given. So, this is why going into that case, if you come in the middle and you haven't followed it through, or you are not alive to the legal nuances, and you just want to comment and you don't have the expertise, obviously you can fall foul. And I give the perfect example that, look, the fact that you watch an operation going on telly does not mean that you can go and take a knife tomorrow and start cutting people or can discuss necessarily what because actually a courtroom is a process. Legal things are happening there. And some of those processes, lay people don't even understand or can even catch the nuances that are going on. So
keep quiet,
it is good for you to have legal advice. I like the fact that you have this gentleman who every once in a while comes on in the morning and explains when an issue happens. You call in the lawyer. Is this something like that? Yes. He will explain that this is what the law is, and gives an explanation so that at least for those who don't have an idea, they can begin to get some idea. But you don't see Kojo beginning trying to explain it himself without that background being given from him. And this is where I find that a lot of people get it wrong because they want to give themselves knowledge and task of things they do not understand.
I want to bring in now Nana Frida Ajiman. We've seen the incarceration of two gentlemen. 3 days for one, 10 days for one. Is freedom of speech under attack? As some may want us to believe?
I think that it hasn't been treated fairly. I have a problem. First of all, I'm not a lawyer. People tend to think I am. I don't know why. But from what I know and understand is what Alex, who's a lawyer, has explained to us. And I don't think that that's a difficulty for those who take time out to go and find out. My problem is that we are in a situation that has never happened before. It hasn't happened to the Ghanaian public. It hasn't happened to the Ghanaian Supreme Court. It hasn't happened to the Ghanaian media. Nobody knows what to expect on Monday. we can only, from our experience over the last few months, determine that on Monday, when they meet and continue the cross-examination, whatever happens, Mr. Chikata will get up and object to something, Mr. Lita will get up and object to something, and Mr. Addison will definitely be asking questions. We know that, Dr. Alfred, but we don't know what will happen in the details and how to manage ourselves based on those details. I think that we needed guidance.
From who?
The Supreme Court, from those who know that the GBA. I think that the media didn't do an extraordinarily good job of preparing us. All that combined is where we've come short. And in this case, the godfather, the grandfather, the one after God in our circumstances, the Supreme Court, I think, maybe we're a bit rough with our words, so you slap us on the wrist. But tell us what to do to a point. They'll tell you that the Supreme Court in particular does not give instructions. They don't do, from what I've been told, or everything that's happening now, it's rather unusual for a Supreme Court in Ghana, in fact, anywhere in the world. The media in there, the kind of attention that it's getting. Typically, we'll hear maybe about, for those of us who like to read about things that happen in the US.
Come to think of it, you raised a very important point, because even the US, where they allow, they don't allow it at the Supreme Court.
No, you don't hear. No, because the process.
They don't allow cameras at the Supreme Court.
No. You know what I'm saying? So we're doing something unique, different, and we must, you see, and then there is the culture of who we are. We've been silenced for decades. So we don't know what to expect when now you're given the free space. So we just keep going. All our regulators have been iffy. In the election year, the kind of language that was used when it was being monitored by Dr. Professor Karikari and others, how many people paid attention to say that, hey, this is where Ghana is going if we don't pay attention to what Professor Karikari and his team are doing, when they were measuring the language on our airways. So it's gotten us to a point. So I think that, yes, it's not our place to tell the Supreme Court what to do, but it is our place to suggest to them that in this instance, they should have helped us with that direction.
No, but some may disagree with you, because the people who have fallen foul of contempt are members of political spokespersons of political parties. And these are the political parties who are in court. You knew we were going to go to court. You should have trained your own spokespeople on what to say or not.
But you see, what about the Ghanaian who watches and doesn't know?
But the Ghanaian so far, at least.
I'm talking about everybody, of which the political parties are a subset. And it is for that interest that for example, I'm in a party, is because of that total Ghanaian body. And I'm saying that as a totality, Ghanaians do not know what to expect on a daily basis, even when there is no Supreme Court hearing. When people are now going to court for the first time, they don't know. We don't teach it in our schools. We don't expose ourselves in any form. Not our arts, culture and arts people don't teach us in art form, nothing. We don't. We always depend on foreign systems. So we don't know what to expect. So when now we get a situation where a sacrificial lamb called Crunchy puts out an argument, his language might be questionable, because when you follow it through, maybe there are a few words that he should have been cautious about. But the substantive concern, which is that, what exactly are we supposed to do? Because as far as we know, by our culture that's developed over the last decade and a half, people speak, and the elders in the country do not say anything. They whisper and murmur in the background. Nobody is for people to see. So at this point that you've raised this caution, and in the case of Samia Uku, you've put us in this position. Please tell us how to speak.
Well, some have suggested this week.
I find this.
Of course, because you're a lawyer. But I'm saying that go to the streets and ask. You see what I'm saying? There's a total Ghanaian body that we're talking about. We're not talking about a class of people. We're talking about the fact. I have young men and women who I meet on a regular basis, almost every morning, who's asked, and I'm saying that, why? They watch. And it's not like they don't understand English. But then it gets to a point where that is complex English.
Alex, you want to
you know what I'm saying?
Yes, but I also have people who I meet on the street and say, oh, Impalcho, it is saying. The Impalcho is there. And I'm saying that as a culture, as a people, we know our courtesies. We have decided to discard.
That one is not in doubt.
No, we have decided to discard them when we get on the airwaves. All of a sudden, he who shouts loudest is supposed to be a hero. And we have, along the whole political divide, this is what we have tended to, encourage. Are you now saying that just because we have encouraged the wrong thing, and somebody says, don't bring it into my house, that person must now educate you how to behave.
But there's nothing wrong with that argument.
What? No.
I don't get
because if the person intends that you become a better person,
yes,
instead of indeed putting you in jail,
you
to start by first clearly telling you what he expects of you.
When they first
you
mentioned the lawyer, I forget his name, the NDC lawyer who
Amaliba.
Did they immediately throw him into jail? Amaliba, was he thrown into jail?
But what exactly?
Did they throw Samia Oku into jail? The warnings were, in fact, people started saying that the Supreme Court don't have teeth. A lot of people were saying you should have done it from day one. But they
you know those who say that? People like me who understand and worry about how come when a lawyer flung the thing, and we are told that in a regular Supreme Court thing, when you fling that's contempt. And nothing happens. When a lawyer keeps saying all kinds of
things, using
where the lines blurred by the justices themselves.
But that is not to say that
the judges are, look, I doff my hat to all those people sitting there. And the reason is that this case is unique in the sense that there's pressure on time. There's pressure because it hasn't been done before. There's pressure because every decision is made, somebody wants to put it into a political dimension. Oh, it's 2-1, it's 1-3, it's in our favor, it's in their favor. This type of behavior, and it was picking up as we get closer to the end of the trial. So you see that straight away a tempo is building. The Supreme Court is saying, look, no matter what political games you play out there, when you come in here,
don't cross that
we've warned you. I actually have, for me, I have absolutely no problem with what has happened, because it's not a case of there were no warnings. And when you say somebody should tell you what, I've said that 95% of the time it borders on just common courtesy.
Alex,
somebody has said, do not speak about the case. If you are in doubt, don't comment.
Alex, listen to this argument I've heard.
Yes.
I've heard expressed by the likes of Asan Kumar, that in London, in the UK, and you schooled in the UK, so you know this, that because of the same challenge,
a magistrate there.
Because of the same challenge, they have passed a law clearly on contempt. So it's not unambiguous. It's not left to some sole discretion of a judge to decide. And therefore, people, like he's saying,
but that
don't
has
understand
not
what it is.
Eradicated the common law version. That is the point he didn't say. You have statutory common law, which covers this, and then you have the common law contempt. It exists. So you can actually be put forward on straightforward contempt, or you can go under the statutory version.
My brother, in all this, you tell me, how many of these words do you regularly use on your program? Statutory this, common that. How many of them do you use on your program? Do you know how many people are watching you? And that is the point. We're talking about moving Ghana in a manner.
Let's break it down.
I need to finish this, Alex. I need to finish this, Alex. People watching must understand so that they know where we're going. It is as simple as that. It is a courtesy, it is an opportunity Ghanaians have not been given for decades. Ghanaians are never told where they're going. Never. So people don't understand. So in a situation like this, very tense, rather stretched, all kinds of things going on, people must be told. I'm saying, look, teach us, treat us like class 1 people as far as Supreme Court processes are concerned, if you like. And if you like, open your phone lines and let's see whether we will not get this opinion out there. People must know. I'm not talking about, I'm not going against culture. In fact, when things were going on, the first thing that struck me, and I made a note of it, is that there goes culture extending itself in the Supreme Court. From what I'm told, typically goes by English law and things, and what happens here, clearly, and that's what he's referring to as common law, clearly our common law is being developed in some form, or is being exposed, rather, not developed, but exposed in some form to the people. But do the people know that? Do the people know what common law is? In respect to what's going on and to ourselves in our own lives.
Many will say that what you're asking for is unrealistic.
Can I just make a point? Can I just make a point?
It isn't unrealistic.
Briefly.
Have you noticed that? You know one of the most beautiful things that's been going on, and it comes always from the lips of Justice Atuguba. He's been saying things. There's a term that was used for it. He says things after he's read the statements about how things are being handled. And he talks about politicians and this and that and the other. every time he does that, do you know how many Ghanaians he's speaking for? He says those things, and those things, I'm sure if I did a scientific thing, I'd be able to determine to you that 90% of Ghanaians are excited because he speaks for them. People are tired of a certain type of politics. They're tired of a certain type of information that's blurred and mad and not put out properly and untruthful. And he was saying those things. And for me, it's the same way that he says those things. It was an opportunity for us to be told, look, in black and white, when you come here and you go and use the word hypocrite for us, you've insulted us. You know what I'm saying? What does it kill? What does it hurt? How complex is it? To just explain that you don't use words like hypocrite on us, no matter the point you want to make. You don't do, you know what I'm saying? People have become all kinds of things over the years. Our culture has suffered a lot. What we think we are supposed to be is not necessarily who we are.
Alex wants to comment on this one.
Look, let's look at what actually people were being chastised for. Each time there was a chastisement or a ruling against people, it was because they had infringed on the integrity of the judiciary. You've made a decision, we don't care. Whatever you come up with, we'll do what we like. Hello? You are hypocritical. You have gone selective type of justice. Hello? You mean journalists, people who are talking, see a problem, are saying they need education to be told that you shouldn't say that a bench has given warning. Has given warning.
Yes, we do.
That don't criticize and put us into disrepute.
Alex, we do.
And so what? How many pages? How many Bibles are you going to write and say, don't say this, don't say that, don't do this, don't do? I mean,
excuse me to say, Ghanaians are not dumb either.
That is why I said this is why I said
need to.
It starts with common courtesy. I said if you deal with just common courtesy, you would have solved 90% of the problem. This is what I started. You remember, that's what I said. And common courtesy says that you are on a public forum. If you disagree with somebody's decision, give your reasons why, whatever, deal with it. Do not attack the person's integrity or his ability to make decisions, etc., etc. What is difficult about this? What really? For me, but because we have a culture, as he's saying, of doing this thing over and wrong and just attacking anybody, somebody get about Fredua this, and you come on the air on some radio station and talk about Fredua anywhere, talk about Samson this way, without even knowing you, has never met you in his life, but that is the forum, and we've all swallowed this all this time. Today somebody has given all these warnings and is telling you that in the Supreme Court, because of the nature of we judges, we never have a mouthpiece, we can never come and respond to you. That's the case law. Whilst you are doing all your things, remember that as judges we do not have a response, so be careful. Don't speak this way. They gave a warning, verbal warning. They gave one line. They gave another line before we came to the touchline warning. Please.
So, Freda, you mentioned the touchline. Where do we draw the line between free speech and contempt?
As far as I'm concerned, the line should have always been drawn from the beginning, and where it has, that line where it was put for me was bothersome. I have a problem, for example, Mr. Atuguba, Stephen.
Yeah,
I don't know why I don't want to call him Stephen and be free. Every time I mix his name up with
the judge,
and I don't want to be heading on a name mix-up.
Absolutely.
I mean anything else but a name.
Atubiga.
Stephen. For example, his statement is not about. Right now, the contempt part has been dealt with. The substantive matter itself is a big issue. When you take Gabi assuming his statement, I went and printed a copy here. It's very, very dangerous. What are we doing about those things? And those things, in my mind, are contemptuous even of our peace, if for nothing else. And they affect the process that's going on.
But that's the point he's making, that you should have known that the person who made those statements should have known before.
I have no problem. So for me, the line should have been drawn early. But they should have been drawn, or we should have been told that this is what the line really means.
But are you saying that someone like Stephen did not know when he was saying this, that what he was saying was inflammatory and could land all of us in trouble?
And you see, that's why I call for.
Did you need anybody to tell him that?
That's why I call for because then it begins to expose to us really what was happening. in the case of Stephen. In the case of Ken Kranchi, he was doing a journalistic exercise.
But concludes by supporting words that had been condemned by the judges.
You see, and that's where I said that
for which somebody had apologized.
When it comes to the particular words, I doubt that people are going to say that they endorse those words. But what was the issue he was raising for analysis and for a solution to? The question was, we've had issues where we've seen certain things happen, and we wish that steps had been taken. We haven't been able to say those things. Somebody has blurted some words out in trying to say those things, and those words, his choice of words, were wrong. In Ken's analysis, he probably also adds the word and endorses it. That one we can raise the issues there.
That's why he was jailed.
Yes.
And when he went there, his approach again was to
That's
defend
why I said that outside of the maybe a few words, for which I don't know how contemptuous it's going to be. I hope I'm not.
You don't see anything wrong with it?
I wish it was 3 days and not 10.
Okay.
But you see, after that, what about the question at stake? Which Alex thinks doesn't matter. And I'm saying, let's go on the streets and people will tell you it does.
The question I want to ask
is what do we not say and what do we say?
Some have said that in response to that question, that Parliament now has a responsibility. Because clearly the law on contempt of Parliament is there, they say.
Yeah.
So why don't you now also clearly pass a law, discuss it, representatives of the people, discuss it, clearly define that, codify it, so that the judges will be guided by that. All of us will be guided by that.
As far as I'm concerned, we really want proper correction of this. Let's put it in our educational system properly.
See.
Yeah, we're always worrying about the chicken thigh that the big man will eat, or the man in the house will eat. We don't worry about the fact that the children have to grow on the proper protein and not the neck of the chicken. It's the same thing. We're always, surface thing. Let's go to the root. Let's let people know and understand what law is and how it works for people. Let's let people appreciate it. And in a very simplistic manner, not in this intense law school, those who went to, not that type of teaching. So that we can understand things. And that's where it goes. But for me, this whole thing, I'll be honest with you, I'm very bothered, again, that those kinds of Civil War statements and things are still lingering. And I'm still trying to find somebody to explain to me what should be done about it. Because it is a serious matter. That's
why the guy has been jailed.
No, that's not why he's been jailed. You see, he's been jailed for saying that if they don't do it, this is what will happen. What about this is what will happen? And when you listen to Atu Stephen's case, I'm very interested in that. The Constitution is here. Let's look up treason. Look, the man said in his statement, he said that the NDC is organizing all across the country. What's that supposed to mean? The NDC is organizing all across the country to make sure that if the judges pass judgment for NPP, they stop it. What does that mean? And now, look, I've met Mr. Stephen. I've met him once. My first impression of him is what I heard him say, a recording of him I heard on radio today. He was on Asempa. They played the recording on Asempa. I heard him speak. My first impression was that way. A cool person, cool-headed person. That was my first impression of him. And he stayed, that impression I kept with when I left him. So I was shocked that he would speak like that. And so I'm saying he did not, and you see, he came on the program as a government spokesperson. On what authority does he now say that the whole of the country NDC people are being organized? The same way I raised the question about Gabi Asumi. On what authority does Gabi Asumi, and they quote him in this thing, say that then maybe we are calling for civil war? Hey, chop off people's arms, people's wives and daughters, and people should suffer. That one is a serious matter that must be looked at.
I have a problem with my colleague because, you see, part of this whole argument is what he's doing now. Exactly what he's doing now. I can go and look for printouts now and come and tell you that an MPP person said this at this time. MPP said, this is not the point. The point about this whole issue is the language across board. All political parties, even in some studios, they will pair people together just to get the sparks for ratings.
That's true.
True or false?
That's true.
So I'm saying that our whole approach to media as a people, forget NDC, MPP, CPP, is what we should start learning, lessons we should start learning from this incident. And I'm glad that at least we can now begin to have the debates. because of the actions of the Supreme Court. Because you see, I have my viewpoint about it, but it's good you have the discussion. People say, oh, we don't know what the line is. Fine, you don't. I think that you should, but if you feel you don't, let the lawyers and let all the people, legal practitioners, begin to educate our people. Let media houses begin to get legal expertise in their house, like you do, to be guiding your steps as you move day to day with your programs. It's important because he has a valid point that, okay, look, have it in education, but to what extent? I think that if you have common courtesies, all those courtesies we used to have when we used to grow up, many of which are lost today.
When we used to grow up.
Yes. The grey has arrived. So
stop growing up. I agree.
The grey has arrived. So anyway, but if we put that in that context, then for me this is fantastic, because you are all asking questions and dealing with issues which but I still stand by my viewpoint that if we begin to deal with each other on the basis of, look, my brother, I don't agree with you. This.
Civility.
Yes, civility, and we sit down in the studio and we don't have a problem. Somebody comes into the studio, sits with another person, and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, I have to prove that I'm... Without even dealing with the issue. The issue is not even dealt with.
I want to take brief comments on the next topic, but quickly wrap up.
Yeah, he cut me off and said...
I do apologize.
Well, it's not a rude cut off. I'm not bothered by that. I know how to do that, and I enjoy that. But the bigger point is that he said that, he cut it off and said that mine is not the point. I disagree with him. Mine is a point, and his is another point.
Okay.
I actually also hold a strong view about the media and how the media has handled Ghanaians on all these matters. After the election, I took a policy for myself and I walk into studios and I tell people, if you put in a rude person like Peter Tokuno and others, I'll walk out of the studio.
You don't do it.
Yeah. And I've walked out of a studio before, live on television and radio. I walked out. I will not take shut up. I won't take it. It is a rude statement you make. You don't tell anybody. I don't tell my son shut up. I don't tell I have a 2-year-old son. I won't tell him shut up. It is rude. And we need to pick up. So I agree with him. I've been to stations where when we finish the program, then the guy will look at me and say, today the NDC guy whipped you, pow. What's that?
I see.
And you know why? Because he would be able to come up with things that aren't true and push it so hard and is loud, and I'm unable to balance the act. I'm saying, how can that be something that grows me and anybody listening to us? Why are we doing that? And so there's a shortcoming on our media front too. There are a lot of people who must learn things, they must begin to understand things, they must appreciate that some things are unacceptable. When somebody makes a statement like civil war or we're organized, we will not, you walk the person out of the studio. You don't invite them back to any studio again.
And as a journalist, I agree.
All these people are being invited back on air. How?
We do that. But I want to take final brief comments on another controversial topic that has been unfolding in Parliament, taxes. We're having fresh taxes imposed.
I got a printout on that too, Alex.
Taxes being imposed on everything from agric to your telephone call you receive from abroad, etc. Alex, I don't know if you have any, because you are an affiliate of the government, you associated with them.
That's the name now, affiliate.
I'm choosing my words carefully.
Unless you become contempt.
Do you support this? You support this move? At a time when everybody's crying that.
In fairness, I haven't followed that particular debate for obvious reasons, because one has been following court cases.
Absolutely.
But from what I gather, it's a proposal that has been put forward to Parliament, and the committee is looking at it.
Proposal. Others have actually been passed.
Okay.
The communication service tax, the one that will impose on calls and receivers.
What I think is, for me, of all the things I've heard, there are only two that raise some concern, and I don't have the detail, but I believe it's the tax, alleged possible tax on agricultural products, and then the tax on airtime, the incoming calls, and so on and so forth. I don't know how that works. Perhaps when you talk
6%
about tax
proposal
on incoming calls, does it affect, for example, WhatsApp? Does it affect FaceTime?
It does.
Because the
word that is used in the law actually is all incoming electronic communications.
But
all
now,
incoming electronic
outgoing
communications.
and incoming are free.
Well, now it's
outgoing is free if you're on FaceTime or WhatsApp. And you are on the internet. You're on that internet. By your internet, how much you're using is billed.
So if you have a modem, for example.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah.
So how does it mean that all of a sudden your 2 CDs that you used to buy
will go up?
Will only last you 5 days instead of 7 days.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
That's what it means. And that will also affect emails we see from outside, Facebook, text messages that come in. So what it is that typically what the explanation I've had is that it's like the roaming. So when you call me from outside, I will pay instead of you.
Yes.
You pay. I'll pay.
Well,
so that's what it is.
I would, before I comment, I would like to get a little bit more of the detail. Why am I saying this? Because there are educational issues in this. You know, when you've put out laptops in all the schools and whatnot, you're trying to make sure that your new generation of Ghanaian growing up is computer literate by the time they get in. Are there concessions for schools? Are there is government going to subsidize those particular areas, etc., etc.? If they are going to do that, and they, for example, the tax is supposed to be on certain commercial areas or whatnot, then it may be viable and not as draconian as it looks. So without seeing exactly what is being said, I raise my hands up. But I know that it's only a proposal yet. More importantly, also the agric.
Yeah.
Because
that has been passed.
The agric one has been passed
by Parliament.
So, but I've heard in commentary that for the government subsidized agricultural items, that is not affected.
Exempted.
But it's the private enterprise ones that are being, because it was being abused by private. Now, I don't know whether this is also true. So
I don't know too.
I need to actually get the detail of it before I actually can comment.
What's the big deal? We need money to run the state, and indeed states run on taxes essentially. So there's no big deal in this, is it? Everybody else is doing it. I mean, the UK taxes are going up, the US taxes are going up.
Let me take it from this angle, and I'm quoting from the report. This tax, such a tax is repressive and would eventually compel more people to stop using their mobile phone. This is an opinion of a member of parliament in 2008. That same member of parliament says, and they're quoting him, if you cannot collect tax on machetes because of smuggling, then you have to tax farmers on daily basis for using their machetes? Is a question that goes. Says, Mr. Speaker, this is unfair. And he added that telephones should not be considered as luxuries but necessities. This same MP says, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately I cannot associate myself with such a positive picture, which is what was being put forward by Mr. Banredu at the time. That has been painted from the budget. And then he says that the brighter future was for only a small segment of the people, explaining that the gap between the rich and the poor continued to widen. What is my point? My point is that this person who was speaking was called Mr. John Mahama, the Honourable Member of Parliament representing Bole Bamboy. What has changed? What really has changed?
Reality?
What is the reality? What circumstances? People are worse off than the people are poorer now than then. So what reality are we talking about? There was clear, real growth in the system at the time Banredu was minister. What are we talking about?
So you don't support any?
Not only that. Come 2011.
Quickly, because you need to wrap up in 30 seconds.
Come 2011, the communication and service tax, popularly known as top tax, has generated more revenue for government since its inception in 2000. More revenue. We're talking about 250 million. What were they using those monies for? What have they been using it for? Why are we now taxing people? Right now, do you know what's happened? The cost of business is going to be even more expensive. Because right now, I just came from the internet cafe. They're saying that when they implement this tax, I should pay more money. That's what you're trying to put to him.
You will pay more.
Yeah, Parliament, when I try and advertise on Facebook or any of those things, it's going to cost
me. Just say that taxing where the Ghana is now, we have to look at ways of generating revenue. For me, one of the main ways, and I don't have a problem with the tax.
You're not collecting
collection.
You're not collecting.
The controversy rages on. We'll see. Parliament has meanwhile suspended the consideration of that
and it's costing us
tax on calls because of the controversy. So we'll see how that unfolds. But that's it for tonight's edition of Joint Caucus. My name is Evan Spencer. You've heard Alex Sebefia, a leading member of the NDC, indeed an associate of the legal team as well. In court, and you've heard Nana Fredra Jumane, a member of the MPP Communications team. My name is Evan Spencer.